Okay, we are on Perek Yud Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Now, we're speaking about darkness now. So let's just read that Pasuk again, page 340. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, Natei yodcha ala shamayim, v'yichoshech al eretz Yisrael, v'yamesh choshech. God says to Moshe, Rabbeinu, stretch your hand out, and there shall be a tangible darkness. 344, top line. So it says like this, Vayet Moshe es yodo ala shamayim, Moshe stretches his hand upwards. Third line, Vayichoshech afela b'chol eretz Mitzrayim shloshes yamim. There was darkness for 3 days. Lo ra'u ish es achiv. Nobody saw each other. V'lo kamu ish mitachtav shloshes yamim. They could not stand up for 3 days. That's what I told you yesterday. The first 3 days was a thick darkness. The second 3 days was an immobilizing darkness. V'lechol b'nei Yisrael haya or b'moshe osam. The Jewish people could see. So, first of all, this thick darkness of the second 3 days, the darkness you can't see anything. Then the second days you can't even move. And I always, you could just imagine a guy in Egypt. You could be in the middle of doing something. All of a sudden you're in the middle of playing basketball. There's the ball. Somebody takes a shot, and just as the ball's rebounding off, it gets real dark, and then it can't move. You get hit in the face with the ball. And then if somebody was swimming in the dark, then all of a sudden they're stuck on you're on a diving board, and all of a sudden you're frozen in midair, and then all of a sudden the lights go on, boom, and you're after 3 days of that, you're probably pretty disoriented. So what is this darkness? That's what what is it? Okay, there's a darkness. So there are different opinions exactly what the darkness was. One of the opinions, there's an interesting statement that the Gemara says, one of the source of this darkness was the darkness of Gehenna. The darkness of Gehenna, the darkness of purgatory, hell. That was the darkness. That's where Choshech came from. Now, when we think of Gehenna, you think of flames, pitchforks, devil-like people, White Sox fans. That's what you think of. That's what you think of in Gehenna. Just what do you call it? So Gehenna, we always think of hell as the fires of hell, which it is to a certain extent, because one of the descriptions of Gehenna is that a person is embarrassed when a person goes up to the world of truth, that all the excuses drop away. So a person is confronted with ultimate truth and is shown what he did, what he could have done, what he could have been. All of his excuses melt away in the face of truth. And what happens is there's a certain sense of shame. And when a person is embarrassed, you feel like you're burning. A person is embarrassed, you feel like you're burning with shame. They even use he's burning with shame. So that's certainly one of the analogies. But the Midrashim also talk about the world of truth, the Gehenna, as, light is always good. All these people who have experienced what's it called, clinical death, they always say, there was a white light and I was just drawn towards this white light. It's amazing how all these people were all tzaddikim who experienced clinical death because they all went to the light. But they don't know how long they're going to stay in the light for. But there's always I describe it was good. It was unbelievable. It was just love and light, and it was just this unbelievable light. I didn't even want to come back. Yeah, but they didn't want you there, so they sent you back. That's why you came back. Did you get the hint? Right? So it was just beautiful. It was just this wonderful, terrific, wonderful everything. Okay, what is Gehenna? So Gehenna is described as being darkness. What does that really mean? Darkness is that you are alone with yourself. You're alone with yourself. You're all alone with yourself. And then you get to know get to realize what other people went through when they were around you for the rest of for your life. You're alone with yourself, confronted by who you are, and there's nobody who can help you. Life suffering, the idea of suffering, there is a statement, the Gemara says, Gemara makes a statement, Soras Rabim Chatzi Nechama. The suffering of the community, the suffering of the Rabim, of the, whatever the opposite of an individual is, more than an individual, it doesn't have to be the whole community, but when more than yourself is suffering, that's half of a consolation. So let's say a person loses his money in the stock market. He's devastated. But if everybody loses their money in the stock market, it takes the sting out. Why is that? Person, what's the difference to you? You don't have any money. What's the difference? Oh, but at least other people lost their money too. If your car gets stolen, so you're terrible. But when your friend comes out of the office and says, hey, my car is stolen too. Wait, we're such low people. What's that? Misery loves company. Well, why? Why is that? Misery loves company. Why does misery love company? That's a statement, and it's true. Okay, I don't say we're celebrating. I don't say it makes you happy. It's not like you can go out and have a couple of beers because he lost his car also. But it takes the sting out. If you were the only guy stuck in traffic on the highway, if you were the only guy stuck on the highway, that's terrible. But if everybody else is stuck, that's good too. Oh, my car broke down, but it's going around. His car broke down also. Okay, that's okay. Why? So what happens is like this. Part of the suffering in life, a lot of the suffering in life, any life situation that is unpleasant, much of the suffering is the feeling that you are all alone. A person who suffers a tragic loss feels they are alone. They've been abandoned. They're by themselves. That's the idea of comforting a mourner. Comforting a mourner has nothing to do with what you say. Do you know the halacha is that when you go to comfort, no one should have to go, but if you ever have to go to comfort a mourner, you don't talk. You don't talk anything. Somebody who's sitting Shiva, you don't talk. You go in there and you sit. If he talks, then you talk. You do not initiate conversation, and you certainly don't make light of the situation. And, sometimes people are just nervous. They don't know what to say, so they'll just say something like, oh, this isn't really that bad. I know somebody who had something really worse happen. Thanks a lot for making light of it, and nobody wants to hear. But okay, people are nervous. They can't blame people because they're looking for something. They're very uncomfortable. So like sometimes people say, well, I can't go comfort a mourner. It's just too uncomfortable for me. I guarantee he's more uncomfortable. He's more uncomfortable. So what is it that you're doing? It has nothing to do with what you say. It has to do with your physically being there. You're just showing him he is not alone. That takes a sting out of it. When you got caught in high school and you were sent to the principal's office, you got caught for any one of several things, probably all at one time, and you got sent to the principal's office and you're sitting there just stewing, and as soon as the door opens and your friend Ricky gets thrown in the room with you, then it's better. Then it's better. And then it's better. What's the matter? So now you're both in trouble. Now both get arrested. You know what? I'm not alone. I'm not alone. It took somebody. I'm not by myself. Darkness of Gehenna means you're alone, and you're alone with yourself. You're alone. I always tell husbands in marriage class, it's a good idea to ask yourself once in a while, how would I like to be married to me? Very, very, very penetrating piece of mussar. How would I like to be married to me? With my stinginess and my bad moods and my grumpiness and my self-centered, how would I like to be married to me? To come home to myself every day? How would you like that? How would you like to see yourself walk through the door every day? Oh, yeah, not so good, right? That's a person, who are you really? Now all of a sudden you're in Gehenna, you're by yourself, facing who you really are. It's all stripped away. You're facing your own selfishness, your own ego, your own desires, everything else which was lived. You lived with it unharnessed and unbridled. You're by yourself. The darkness of Egypt, the Medrash says, from the darkness of Gehenna. That's what it says. That's what the Medrash says. There's another statement. It says, you know how thick it was, the darkness? It was as thick as a dinar. A dinar is a type of coin. I think in Jordan they have, that's the name of the denomination, isn't it? Today in Jordan, I think it was a Jordanian dinar, right? It was as thick as a dinar. A dinar is a coin that's mentioned in the Gemara, right? What does that mean? The darkness was as thick as a dinar. It was as thick as a coin. Couldn't come up with something else to describe how thick it was. So one of the basic ideas, a coin is supposed to be something that's very hard to bend. The darkness was impenetrable. It was so thick they could not move. They were completely frozen in the darkness. You couldn't move. There was no move you couldn't move around like trying to move through a coin. There are people who could bend coins with their fingers, but a coin is generally hard to bend. That's how thick the darkness was. But there's a certain depth to that. What is the depth? What do you think the Medrash is telling you? It was as thick as a coin. That's how dark it was. What do you think the Medrash is telling you?
When you have a lot of money, you can't see yourself.
Well, money is blinding. Yeah, exactly correct. Money is blinding. When it comes to money, nothing is blinding as money. Well, all of a sudden, not only your vision is blinded, your vision is distorted. All of a sudden, things look a whole lot different. Things look a whole lot different when it comes to money. Right? Money gives you a completely different view. The Torah says don't take bribes. A person who takes a bribe, it says it blinds the wise. It blinds you. A bribe blinds you. What you see suddenly changes because you inherently change. You feel connected to the person who bribed you. Therefore, that's one of the ideas that the darkness in Egypt is described as thick as a coin. Okay? Now, let's go on to there are a few more fundamentals over here. Take a look at Perek Yud Pasuk Chaf Vav. Very interesting insight over here into what Moshe Rabbeinu says to Paro. Paro calls Moshe Rabbeinu. He's summoned. And he says, okay, in Pasuk Chaf Dalet, page 344, 24. It's 6 lines from the top. Vayikra Paro el Moshe vayomer lechu ivdu es Hashem. Go serve God. Rak tzonchem uvekarchem yutzchag. Leave your cattle here. Gam tapchem yelechem achem. Take your children, like you asked last time. Take your children with you. Vayomer Moshe. Moshe says, not only we're taking our cattle, Gam ata titein biadenu zvachim v'olos. You're also going to give us offerings. We're not only taking our stuff, we're taking some of your stuff too. Why? Ve'asinu la'Hashem Elokeinu. And we will offer to Hashem our God. V'gam mikneinu yelech imanu. Our own cattle will go with us. Lo tishar parsa. Not one hoof will remain in Egypt. Ki mimenu nikach la'avodas Hashem Elokeinu. We will take from them to serve Hashem our God. Now pay attention carefully to this last line. V'anachnu lo neida ma na'avodas Hashem ad bo'inu sham. We don't know how we're going to serve Hashem until we come there. And therefore, we need to take all the cattle. What's Moshe Rabbeinu saying? Plain level, what's Moshe Rabbeinu saying?
We're not going back.
We're not, well, before he says we're not going back, you're right, but before he says we're not going back, what's he saying about the cattle?
Taking it with us?
We're taking it all with us. Why? Because we don't know how we're going to serve Hashem until we get there. Meaning what?
We could use anything.
What's that?
We could use anything. So
We don't know how many offerings we're going to bring. We're going to get there, we're going to serve Hashem. We don't know, so we want to be supplied when we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, we want to make sure we're going to go out there. We're going to bring offerings. We don't know how many, so we're taking the whole bunch with us. You may as well take the whole bunch because we don't know how many offerings we're bringing. Okay, that's the plain meaning of the verse. That's why he's saying to Paul, not only we're going to take, you're going to give us. We don't know how much we need it all. Don't make any conditions with me. Don't tell me we're leaving our cattle here. We don't know how we're going to service until we get there. Now, listen to what the commentaries say. A completely different level. Commentators say, sometimes in life, a person decides what his task is in life. These different people have different personalities. My task is to do chesed, and you want to be with Hatzalah, and you want to be a Torah learner. Everybody's got a different task in life. You don't know yourself what your task is. We will not find out what our real task was until we get there. That means in the world of truth, we'll find out what was our real task. We have to do everything here. But sometimes in life, we think what our job is. I'll give you a classic example. You ever been to the Kotel? I'm sure you've all been to the Kotel. You ever been to the Kotel? A guy came over and started jingling coins, right, or asking you for money at the Kotel, and you were trying to daven with intensity and devotion, and this guy came over and he was jingling coins at you. The Kotel tax, right? He's coming over, he's jingling coins, right? He wants, now, sometimes people are annoyed by that. Sometimes people are annoyed by, hey buddy, I didn't come here to give you money. I came here to daven, right? That's what you came for. Who said that was what you were really brought here for? Maybe your real job at the Kotel was to give, I'm not saying you should give guys at the Kotel money. You have to be very selective before you give people money, especially if they smell like vodka, or they're dressed like King David's harp. You have to be, just because a guy is dressed like the Messiah doesn't mean he is. But if a guy's got a rusty needle dangling out of his arm, I wouldn't, I'm not sure I would give him too much money. But assuming that he's legit. Assuming he's legit. The guy's asking for money, but that wasn't what I came here for. Who said that your job is what you want it to be? Maybe your job is what Hashem wants it to be. Sometimes the guy comes, I'm coming, I'm going to take my wife out to dinner tonight. I'm a sport. I'll take her out any falafel she wants. I'll blow the wad, right? Let's go out. And my wife says to me, I just want to stay home. Do you mind washing the dishes? But I was going to be a national hero, and I was going to take her out. It's her anniversary after all. She's entitled to a falafel. I was going to take her out. She wants to just stay home, and she doesn't feel like, and she wants me to do the dishes. And I'm upset about it. Well, why? Because I wanted to do that mitzvah of taking her out. Yeah, but she wants you to do the mitzvah of washing the dishes. Right? What's your real job? You understand? We won't know until we get there. That means we got to do everything. But we won't find out what we did properly and what we did not properly until we get there. So I'll tell you an amazing story. Did you ever hear of Rabbi Meir Shapiro of Lublin, the Daf Yomi, Rabbi Meir Shapiro? They don't learn, the world learns the Daf Yomi today. There's the Daf Yomi. You've heard of the Daf Yomi, right? One page of Talmud every day, and they have every 7.5 years or so, you finish the entire Shas. The Daf Yomi is now in their 11th cycle or so, 12th cycle. It's been going on since Rabbi Meir Shapiro started at 1923. Rabbi Meir Shapiro also Rabbi Shapiro also innovated something else, which people know is less famous than the Daf Yomi. Rabbi Shapiro of Lublin looked at the situation of yeshiva boys in Europe. Now, if you know anything about the history of yeshivas, what it used to be is boys used to come. They would learn in some city, in some town there would be a yeshiva. They didn't have lunchrooms. It's called in Yiddish Essen Teg. Essen Teg means they had daily assignments of where they would eat their meals. One Sunday you'll eat by the Cohns, and Monday by the Levins, and Tuesdays by the Goldsteins. And these people were never too rich either, and none of them were that happy to have an extra mouth to feed because they were struggling. And often yeshiva guys missed meals. You guys complain about the food in the yeshiva here. You can't imagine. You go in there, if you got a slice of bread and an egg, you were doing well. And it was very difficult for yeshiva boys. Often they slept on benches in the local shul. They didn't have beds to sleep in. Rabbi Shapiro of Lublin decided. He was a member of he was a tremendous Rav, tremendous genius, and he was also a member of the Polish Parliament. He was a very, very eloquent speaker. He was a representative, very, very elegant, majestic person. And so he decided to build a yeshiva that was going to be modeled. It's going to be a different type of yeshiva. It's going to be a yeshiva with a dormitory, with a lunchroom. And he fundraised for 7 years till he built this massive edifice called Chachmei Lublin. If any of you have ever traveled to Europe, on these trips that they make to Europe, you'll see they've now made it, I think it's a nursing school now. After the war was taken over by the non-Jews, they turned it into a nursing school. This was an absolute magnificent edifice. At the grand opening, were you there at the Yeshiva Chachmei Lublin? The Chachmei Lublin Yeshiva. And so Rabbi Shapiro at the grand opening of the yeshiva after 7 years, and they finally got it built, and everything was in there. They had the best boys came to the yeshiva. They had the grand opening. Now, his Rebbe, Rabbi Shapiro's Rebbe, was a man named the Short Cover Rebbe. Short Cover Rebbe was a tremendous Talmid Chacham, a tremendous tzaddik. He was Rabbi Meir Shapiro's Rebbe, and he was at the grand opening. And at the grand opening of the yeshiva, he was standing next to the man who donated the land for the yeshiva. Very wealthy man. So the Rebbe turned to him, and he said, I just want to tell you something. I envy you your merit. I envy you your schus. I envy you the merit that you have. So the man was like, he donated the land for the yeshiva. It's going to be built on that. And the Rebbe said, but not the merit of having donated the land for the yeshiva. That's not what I'm talking about. Because this is coming with a lot of honor and a lot of prestige. That reduces the reward you get, reduces the nobility of the deed, because there's prestige and a lot of attention and a lot of honor. It's not what I envy. You must have done another mitzvah that as a result of that mitzvah, you were rewarded with the privilege of doing this mitzvah. That's the mitzvah I envy. There must be something that you did sometime, somewhere, which was a really high-level mitzvah, which would give you the reward of being able to donate the land for the yeshiva. That's the envy. That's the mitzvah that I envy. So sometimes a person thinks that they've done a tremendous thing. They did a big mitzvah. You don't even know what you've done. You don't know what counts for what. And therefore, the Torah Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, we won't know until we get there. Well, no, in the world of truth, then it's all rolled out in front of us. Then we find out everything. Okay. Now, go on ahead, because I want to get to the Korban Pesach. Take a look at Pasuk, Perek Yud Beis, Pasuk Ches. 12:8. Okay. Now here, page 3. What page? 350. Okay. Here, God comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, and God tells Moshe Rabbeinu about the mitzvah of the Korban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb. Okay, and nowadays, we don't have the Paschal Lamb because we don't have sacrifices. What do we do instead? We have the Shenkban, right? What we have at the Pesach, if you were sitting at a Pesach Seder back in the day, time of the Beis Hamikdash, so you would be eating roast lamb. Can you handle that, Eliasaf, or you're not into that sort of thing? That smile says you are, right? A little bit of roast lamb, some lamb chops, roast lamb chops as much as you want right at the Pesach Seder. That was the Korban Pesach. Hey, I got to suffer through it, right? You got to suffer through it, right? At the Pesach Seder. Now, instead of chicken, you'd be eating roast lamb. I know you're a vegetarian, Isha. I can't do anything about it. But me too. I don't eat any vegetables. The what do you call it? If it ain't alive, I don't eat it. So you have some roast lamb. Okay, nowadays we don't have it. Now here you have the Korban Pesach. What is this all about? Now, I want to show you something about you have this lamb that you have to serve at the Korban Pesach. But I want to show you first Let's read a couple of psukim. We'll read about 3 or 4 psukim here. Okay, starting from the top of page 350. Dabru el kol hadas Yisrael lemar be'esor lachodesh hazeh v'yichlem ish selavei savo selavais. Every household has to take a lamb. And the Medrash says they tied the lambs to their beds, and the Egyptians had to watch their gods. They worshipped the lamb. According to some of the commentaries, it doesn't mean the physical lamb, it means the constellation that corresponds to the lamb, which is the ram. What is it called? The ram, Aries? Is that Aries? Right, the Aries is the lamb that constellates. So even the constellations, by the way, you know that there is something, this idea of the zodiac and the horoscope and all that stuff. Do you know that there is a real discipline? Nowadays, obviously, whatever they print in the newspaper, your horoscope, it's always the same thing. You're gonna meet someone very special today. Then you go outside and you get mugged, and he's got a Saturday night special with him, so there you go, there's your special. You're gonna have a very interesting day today, right? And then your car breaks down in traffic. That was pretty interesting. So that's obviously nonsense. But there is a real horoscope. I remember in youth group, the girls were always reading the horoscope, like it's always the same thing. So and then they ended up crying the next day. So there's a what do you call it? The lamb is they worship, whether the lamb itself, whether the constellation, that was their god, and it certainly represented their god. And now they're being humiliated, having their god tied to a bed. And for 4 days they have to watch this before the Jewish people slaughter their bed. Now I want to show you something about this Korban Pesach. It says like this: they take from the Korban Pesach, and you know what? I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to read through it, just all the psukim, but just go down to the bottom of the page, pasuk tes. Pasuk ches, sorry, I lied. Pasuk ches, 3 lines from the bottom. Ve'ochlu es habasar balayla hazeh, on this night of Pesach, referring to Pesach, they will eat the meat. Sli eish, it has to be roasted. Umatzos amorim yochulu, along with matzah and maror. So the matzah and maror we have, Yishai, so we're okay. We're just not the roast lamb, but with the matzah and maror we have, so you can enjoy it. Al tochlu v'menu no, don't eat it raw. Uvashel mevushel b'mayim, or cooked in water. Ki im tzli eish, it's got to be roasted. Rosho al kra'ov ve'al kirba, it's got to be roasted whole. Okay, it's got to be roasted whole first of all. Okay, hold for a few minutes. I want to cover the whole thing. It's a very involved idea here. Number 2, veloso siru mimenu ad boker. Don't leave any over for the next day. Ve'ad nosar mimenu ad boker ba'esh tisrofu. Anything left over from the Paschal lamb, you have to burn by the next day. I mean, you don't have to stuff yourself to the gills. If you couldn't finish it, you couldn't finish it. But whatever's left over for the next day, you have to burn. Okay, can't eat it. Okay. There are a few more laws involving the Paschal lamb. Later on, the Torah is going to say you're not allowed to break any bones in the Paschal lamb. Can't break any bones. Number 3, only pre-designated members may partake. In other words, before we shech the Paschal lamb, we have to create a group. It could be my family alone. It could be my family and your family, my family with guests. But we have to be pre-designated who's going to partake of the Korban Pesach. Number 4, the Korban Pesach cannot be taken out of the area where you eat it. Number 5, I don't even know what number I'm on. Okay? Now, there are 2 approaches here. I want you to hear both approaches, what the commentaries say. It's a fascinating thing here. First of all, the first rule is it's got to be eaten roasted, and it's got to be roasted whole. Okay? That's what it says. Roasted. Can't eat it cooked. You can't eat it raw. What was that steak tartare you guys had? None of that. It's got to be roasted whole. The lamb has to be roasted whole. What's the idea between roasting the lamb whole? Okay, now there are 2 themes here. There are 2 themes, 2 separate themes, but they're both themes. The first theme is like this. When did this all take place? On the night of the dying of the firstborn. So you got Egyptian firstborns are dying all over the place. What's happening while their firstborns are dying?
Feasting.
Jews are roasting lamb and then feasting indoors. Okay, now picture this. 2 Egyptians are walking on the street, and all of a sudden, death all over. And they're despondent. People are screaming, firstborns are dying left, right, and center. And while all this is happening, you'd like to call out to your deity. And all of a sudden, what's that smell, Walid? I don't know, Anwar. It smells like roasted deity. That puts you in trouble. Now you know you're in real trouble. So what do? You go over to, what a coincidence. The Torah says you got to roast it. Isn't it interesting? When you cook it, it doesn't smell as much. When somebody's roasting, somebody has a barbecue in the backyard, everybody on the block smells it. And all you do is you walk past, think to yourself, they're having such a good time. Why wasn't I invited? That's what you think when you smell a barbecue. Why are they're eating barbecues? I'm having tuna fish. Now what's happening here? This is not fair. That's why you barbecue, you smell down the block. There's no coincidence that the Torah says it has to be roasted. That's a way of letting the Egyptians know, that's your God you smell. Right? No kidding. Now, in case you're not sure, so what do? So Walid says, hey, come on, Anwar, let's go over and check what's happening by the Jews. What a coincidence. It can't be cooked. Cooked means it's in a pot. No, it's got to be roasted. And not only it's got to be roasted, it's got to be roasted whole. So Walid stands on Anwar's back and he pulls himself up the window. He sees a bunch of Jews who are chomping away, or the Jews are roasting it, and he says, uh-oh, I think that's a lamb. He says, you sure it's not a turkey? Hey, Walid, with 4 legs, that's a lamb, right? What a coincidence. Got to be roasted whole. The whole idea is twofold. Number one, it teaches the Egyptians there's nothing to their God, and it reinforces to the Jews there's nothing in the Egyptian God, because the Jews were also seeped in the idol worship of the Egyptians after being there for 210 years. They were also influenced by the society. That's idea number one. No coincidence. No coincidence that the God has to be roasted whole, and the Torah creates a situation where it can't be any different. It's got to be roasted and roasted whole. There's no question anybody seeing it or smelling it will know it's the Egyptian God. It's not a turkey and it's not cooked. Everybody sees, a 4-legged turkey, right? In Ripley's Believe It or Not. No. This is a roasted Egyptian deity. Well, that there's very little that it convinces you your God is helpless other than your God being roasted on a spit head to toe. Okay, number one. Number two, there's a second theme here. When we go to the Pesach Seder, there's this idea that we lean at the Pesach Seder, bring out all your finest cutlery and your dishes and everything else. What's the theme of the evening at the Pesach Seder?
Relax.
Not relax. Very good. We are aristocrats. We are free men. Okay? You're free. You're free. We're free men. We are aristocrats at the Pesach Seder. We lean, eat, I still have not figured out how to get a cup of wine into my mouth without spilling while I'm leaning. It just, that angle doesn't, it's kind of like this, just somehow it doesn't work. But, all right, my wife does the laundry anyway, so a little spilling's not a problem, But I still haven't figured out how you get that glass of wine, like that while you're leaning. But once I'm on my third glass, it wouldn't matter, I'd be spilling anyway, so it doesn't matter what position. So we're aristocrats. Now look at this. Look at how all these laws apply to aristocrats. It's remarkable. No coincidence in the Torah. When aristocrats eat meat, do you cook it or you roast it?
Roast it.
Of course. Roasting meat tastes better. And not only that, you only cook meat if you're on a budget. When you're on a budget, if you cook some chicken, when you cook chicken, it expands because it absorbs the water. When you roast things, they shrivel. You buy a couple of pounds of meat, and you put it on the grill, and you're like, where did it all go? Right, it shrivels up. Next thing you know, you got a piece of meat this big. You start out with a whole bag, and it all gets shriveled up. Aristocrats are not on a budget, so when we roast the meat, so we're not concerned. We eat the finest meat, and we roast it. Number one. Number two, Torah says that you're not allowed to break any bones in the Korban Pesach. Why not? Why don't you break bones? What does that mean? You don't break bones in the Korban Pesach. Right. Most aristocrats, so if you're at a Jewish table on Shabbos and you have some cholt, right, and some cholt and chicken, so then you sit around with that crunching chicken bones, whatever it is that Jews do at the table. When we're a little more dignified, if you go to dine with the Queen of England, nobody's sitting there like the ambassador from Australia isn't sitting there, hey, can I have another drumstick over there? Right? Nobody aristocrats don't do that, number one. But even more than that, more fundamental. Why would you break bones? Besides chewing on it to suck out the marrow, why else would you break bones?
Trying to get every piece.
Trying to get every piece. You're a little also, right? What else? You're in a hurry. Even when you cut it, you can't cut through the bones. You got to cut through the joints. You can't break bones. Why not? It means you're in a hurry. What's the definition of a free man?
Got time.
Your time is your own. That's the definition of a free man. As soon as your time is governed by somebody else, you're no longer free. If you work for a boss, if you're married, if you are, what do you call it? You're punching a clock. If you're married, if you have responsibility to somebody, if you're married, you are no longer a free person. I once asked the guy after two or 3 months of marriage, I said to the guy, what did you learn in your first 3 months of marriage? He looks at me, he's got kind of a dazed look on his face. He goes, don't make any independent plans. Right, absolutely correct, absolutely, because you're not independent. Get used to it. As soon as your time is not your own, you're not free. An aristocrat, I'm not in any hurry. I could cut it and slice it like a chef. I don't have to, I'm not in a hurry to break it. Pre-designated, why does it have to be pre-designated? Again, the same theme. When pre-designated, it's not like one of these informal crash parties. Invitations, it's like Jewish invitations, I was thinking back in the day when I was a teenager, I don't know why I never wrote, when I went to weddings, I should have grabbed other people's cards and written something on the inside from the host, but I never did. But, you got your card laid out, it's an invitation. We're aristocrats over this. This is invitation only. Why can't you leave any for the next morning?
The poor people do.
Leftovers. Called leftovers. Did your mother ever tell you, well, leftovers are just as good as fresh? Did your mother ever, did you ever hear that music? Leftovers is just as good as fresh, which we all know is not. So, when I was a kid growing up, I had no choice, but when I got married and my wife said to me, well, leftovers just as, I said, great, you're absolutely right. So give it to the kids and I'll take what comes right out of the oven. Thank you very much. Those days is long gone, right? And why can't you take any out? Aristocrats don't eat left. You don't take doggy bags. Nobody leaves the Queen of England's table. Oh, do you mind if I take some of that home with me? That was really good artichoke hearts. Can I take some of that? Doggy bags of by the Queen of England. Only Jews. But no, the Jewish guy at the Queen of England, he probably grabbed some stuff. Can I take a piece home for my wife? but aristocrats don't use doggy bags, right? Number 5, you're not allowed to take any out of the area that you ate it. Why not? Why not?
I thought that was doggy bags.
No, doggy bags, you can't take any leftovers. But when we're designated to eat it, we have to eat it in the room that you're not allowed to take any outside the door, even if you come back. That night, you can't take any out. Why? What's that? That's why they can't leave the house. That's a separate command. You're right. That's a separate command. You can't leave. Here it says you can't take any of the Korban Pesach outside.
Because aristocrats don't eat and talk or eat and walk.
Aristocrats don't eat and walk. You're not even allowed to take it out without eating it. You're right. You don't walk around outside eating it. You want to stay there. You're right. It's aristocratic behavior. You don't walk around with your food. It's true. Well, I think it's a little more than that. The commentaries say like this: why would you take it out? Why would you take it out? Before we answer why shouldn't you, why would you? What? No. Leftovers something else. Why would you take it outside? So I'll give you an example. Imagine you walk into the lunchroom at Or Sameach. You're the first one into the dinner room. You happen to get in there first, and you see that the tables are piled high with steak and lamb chops. And there's a sign in the lunchroom that says, as many as you want to eat, there's plenty of endless supply. And you were the first guy into the lunchroom, right? See, right? You'd grab one in one hand, one in the other, put a third in your mouth, and you'd go out on the walkway waving, hey guys, wave them in like a race car, with the thing, hey guys. Why? Because you got excited. It's a novelty. It's a novelty. This is different. This is different than what we normally get. I don't know, maybe you guys always get lamb chops here. I don't know, but this is different. You ever see people, when people go to a Chinese restaurant, ever watch 4 people go to a Chinese restaurant? Everybody's got their face in everybody else's plate. What have you got? Well, I've got yellow MSG that's going to explode at 2 a.m. What have you got? I've got green MSG that's going to explode. What kind of weeds are those? I don't never smoke them. And everybody at the table at the Chinese restaurant, everybody's poking around. When you go to Bubby Bernstein's Cholent Palace, right, everybody's got the same thing. It's roast chicken and some cholent. That's it. Nobody's looking at everybody else's plate. It's all the same. Chinese restaurant, everything. Why? Because of novelty. Aristocrats are, it's not a novelty. If you're carrying it outside, hey, everybody got some roast lamb tonight. That's not aristocratic behavior. That's Jewish behavior. That's not aristocratic behavior. Aristocratic behavior is, we're a little more dignified about this. If you ever get invited to the White House for a dinner and they make you the kosher meal, you're not supposed to show, you're supposed to be paying attention to the president. You're not supposed to say, Well, I'd really like to get it more of that roast pheasant over there. You're supposed to be a little bit more dignified. That's aristocratic behavior. Therefore, the Torah says that you're not allowed to take it out. That's the theme of the Korban Pesach. It reflects the Pesach night. The Pesach night is the night of aristocracy. That's all contained in the Korban Pesach. Now, there's one more law that we have to do. We won't have time for it today. The Torah says you cannot participate in the Korban Pesach unless you've been circumcised. And even a Jew whose brother died as a result of circumcision, and he was not circumcised because he's hemophiliac or there's hemophilia in the family, he cannot participate in the Korban Pesach. Whereas a Jew who is circumcised could participate in the Korban Pesach. That we'll have to talk about on Sunday, Mirza Hashem, what the connection is between the circumcision, which is a prerequisite for the Korban Pesach. Okay?